Madam Speaker, thank you for allowing me to address the House for 5 minutes. And when you travel around the country today, one of the things that we see is that a lot of people are divided over different issues. But one thing that they all seem to be in unison about is the need for our government to be accountable. The administration to be accountable to the House and to the Senate, and for us to be accountable to the people that we represent. And oftentimes we spend hours on this floor debating just how we're going to bring about that accountability. And that's why it's so disappointing at the end of the day to realize it doesn't really matter what we put in the statutes, because the administration has determined that they're just not going to comply with it. This year, Madam Speaker, when we're looking at one of the largest budgets we have, the defense budget, the Secretary of Defense issued a gag order prohibiting hundreds of members of the Pentagon from doing what they do every year, and that is to just communicate with members of Congress and to tell them where cuts were being made and where monies were going to various programs. And it's one thing if they were talking to members of Congress, but then when they fail to comply with the statutes that dictate that they send us information so we can make those independent assessments, Madam Speaker, that's where it becomes even more frustrating. The statute that's passed by this Congress, signed by the President, says that the Secretary of Defense, when he sends his budget over, has to give the Armed Services Committee a shipbuilding plan. It makes common sense, it makes good sense that we know how many ships we were going to build, how many ships we were going to have, so that we could compare them with other nations. And then he has to certify that the budget he sends over meets that plan. He has to do the same thing with an aviation plan, required by law, that he submits to us an aviation plan telling us which planes they're going to build, how many planes we're going to have, and a certification that the budget complies with that aviation plan. This year, he just refused to do it. When we asked him about it, he responded with no information at all. And so the Armed Services Committee, on a bipartisan basis, with every member of the Armed Services Committee agreeing, every Democrat, every Republican, passed a congressional inquiry mandating that the Secretary of Defense comply with the law and send us the shipbuilding plan and the aviation plan by September 15th so we would have those figures before the conference committee came back on the defense authorization bill. And Madam Speaker, to date, he has refused to submit those plans to the Armed Services Committee. So, Madam Speaker, the difficulty we have is this. How do you, as the Secretary of Defense, look our men and women in uniform across the world who are defending this country and say to them, you need to comply with the law, you need to comply with the regulations that we send out of the Pentagon, but it does not apply to him, and he continues to skirt the law? Madam Speaker, the American people deserve better, and we're going to continue to fight until we get that information to hold the accountability that we think they need. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Virginia.